Well, I think we
Okay.
should cheers our coffee
Okay, good.
before we start this. So
Yeah, good.
thank you for being here, Amy.
Oh,
I appreciate
it's a
you.
pleasure, and I like meeting coffee fans.
Well,
Always.
I honestly, there's something beautiful about drinking coffee, and it's also 7:30 at night, and we're drinking coffee,
Oh,
which
it's
is
so good.
hilarious.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
Well, welcome to this my podcast. This is called On Film with Kevin McCarthy,
yes.
and I created this show to have longer form conversations with actors and filmmakers and artists about their process
Okay.
and from physicality to relationship to film score to relationships to your cinematographers and all the different incredible artists that you've worked with over the years and the filmmakers you've worked with. But obviously, we're celebrating your amazing performance in Zach Kreger's Weapons, which is one of the best performances I've seen. Just an amazing performance. And so I start off this interview always by asking this question because there's a date on there on my logo, which is a ticket stub. That's July 3rd, 91, which is the day Terminator 2 opened in theaters.
Oh, wow.
And I mentioned that because that's the movie that made me fall in love with films.
Really?
It was the pivotal film for me growing up. So I'm curious for you growing up, what was the movie that you saw at a younger age that meant a lot to you when you were a kid that kind of gave you an understanding of the power of movies?
My brother Jim and we grew up in the city of Chicago, and we were both movie buffs. And me in particular, it just drew me in. We had a theater, one end of the 71st Street and the other, and I'd go every week. I saw all of I was very, very impressed with the black and white films. Like, I remember seeing On the Waterfront, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I remember just seeing so many of the black and white films and any noir things, anybody who was being pistol whipped. I thought that was just fantastic. you know? So I can't say that I have one like you have on your ticket, but I think it could have been like seeing Brando.
Yeah.
Because it just knocked me out because, as you know, it was a different way of working when he came around. And so his naturalness and his way that he used his body in particular, because I like really connecting with my body when I work, just made an impression on me. And also growing up, I saw all of the quote unquote scary movies. I was a real Nosferatu fan. I saw all the Hammer films, all the Peter Cushing films, all the black and whites, and I just knew that's where I was supposed to be. I kind of just said, "Oh, there's my people," or something like that. I kept it to myself, but it just kind of grew out of that. I was the kid who, like, did plays in her room on her own and made other people sit, so I would do plays for them. And I was always performing and doing that and telling stories. And that's why I like those earlier movies I saw, because they were telling a story back to me. And I said, oh, I get this story. I like this story. This is my story, even if it was something totally different from me.
It's funny. I'm in a phase right now where I'm watching a lot of Buster Keaton movies.
Oh, really?
Just because I love it's like that era of filmmaking with silent films and
Yes.
actors using all that physicality, like
All the
Charlie Chaplin.
physicality. Yeah.
Just remarkable to watch, and also the way they use the frame too.
Yes, that's true.
Like
Yes.
what's not in the frame, what's in the frame,
Correct.
and how we fill that in. How as an audience we collaborate with the image and understand what's going on. It's just an amazing thing. Obviously, I know music was a huge part of your earlier childhood, and I want to use that as a bridge to musicality and dialogue. There's a way that that I remember interviewing Christopher Walken once, and he spoke about this musicality of dialogue,
Yes.
and you can
and
find
he speaks that way too.
right, and that inflection.
Yeah.
And I think about lines that you deliver in your films and the beats that you might wait in between a sentence before you deliver. And I'll bring up one in particular.
Okay.
It's the scene in Weapons during the fork sequence. You're talking to Alex, and you say, "I can make your parents hurt themselves.
Right.
I can make them hurt each other." And then you wait about 3 or 4 seconds and say, "I can make them eat each other if I want to."
Right.
There's something about the delivery of that feels like it's on a musical wavelength.
Yeah, that's you want that payoff for that, I studied piano for a long time, and I bugged my parents for that. I was like a good piano player. I wasn't great or anything, but and I'm also was in a number of bands, and I sang a lot. So I I have that ability. Usually people recognize me by my voice, which is interesting. And I have a good mimic side to me, and I can kind of go up or go down. And I thought Gladys was the perfect opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's
Because she just plays like, oh, how are you? And that's an easy thing to do, but it's very calculated by her, So when you find that rhythm when you're working, that's great. Because when it's not working. When you're just kind of saying these things, and it's like, what are you doing?
It's interesting because Gladys puts on a performance in certain aspects.
Yeah.
And I think one thing you're hitting on, which I think is really interesting, is the juggling of tone.
Yes.
When I watch Weapons, the tone of that film is remarkable. And there are moments where we're in comedy. Like Josh Brolin says, "What the fuck?" when he wakes up from his dream.
Right.
And he slices, like Zach's brilliant, he slices the horror with comedy. But then there are moments with your character where she's being a bit comedic, or she's being nonchalant about something that's brutal that's happening off screen, and there's like this interesting juggling of tone. I was wondering if you could speak about that balance for her, and like even at the end of that fork scene, you go, "All right, go to school, get on the bus."
Yeah, get going.
Yeah, like
Right.
there's a shift that happens in the tone, even in the
Definitely.
middle of her scenes.
Definitely. Well, I gotta hand this off to Zach because I thought him making chapters on everything and getting all the POVs of what you thought happened, and then you see somebody else. I thought that was very smart of him. And Gladys, you don't do that with, which is fun. You just kind of see her, So there's certain tone for the film itself by the time I come in, and boom, it's kind of like, aside from the way I look, it's like, who is this person? The tone, I always wanted her to be very specific. She knew exactly what she needed to do. Her back is against the wall. She's got to kind of go out in public and figure out how she can keep things at bay. But she also has to have a lightness when she's out in the world, which is not too often. And then when she's home, she's in control. She's the alpha dog, And I think that going back and forth was easy for me to do that because I always kept in mind, why are you doing this? Which when you're acting, it's always like, when you study and this is like, what's your intention? What are you doing? Her intention is like, I need some help. I've got to get these people in my powers so I can utilize them, So that shift for me was very easy because I understood what she needed, what she wanted. And then Alec kind of, I really like him, and I think that was a surprise for Gladys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to watch. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about, because in terms of like dialogue and musicality of dialogue, but then physicality, you talked about Brando and like embodying the character, figuring out how they're going to move. I remember Denzel Washington spoke once about he put a character's shoes on and you find the character.
That is the key. That is for actors, and if
Really?
you've done any stage work.
Why
literally,
shoes?
Because you're standing on the boards. You're standing. It has to come up from that way. You can't intellectualize. It doesn't start from here and then here. It starts with your body, and then you connect to it. And when I started out coming up in theater, that was you had to have your feet on the ground. You had to understand how it comes through you to come out. Your voice will change. Your attitude will change. Your posture will change, But yeah, Denzel is absolutely right. It comes with the shoes. And if they're not right, that won't work. It really won't.
So I mean, do you have a definitive moment when you found Gladys? And I know it's a process. I know that there's
Yeah.
makeup and hair and script and rehearsal and shooting. But do you have a moment where maybe you looked in the mirror and you're like, there she is. I found her now. This is what I need to do with this character. Or was it more flowing than
Well,
that?
I'll be honest with you. When I read the script, right before I first met Zach, I just knew who this person was for some reason. I just saw her very clearly. I certainly didn't see what we came up with because that was a coordinated effort by an incredible group of people to come up with that look. But as we started layering those pieces on, it just became clearer and clearer to me. And because she does have, well, for lack of a better word, an exaggerated look, it was so freeing. And once I really had that on, I was like, I can do whatever I want. I'm in charge here. I know what I have to do. As actor, I was even saying that to myself, which is unusual for me to say to myself. And as Gladys, it was just the floodgates opened. They really did.
You talk about like kind of thinking like about saying you kind of knew who this person was.
Yeah.
When you play a character, I mean, the beauty of acting is you get to live the life of someone that you're not, right? You get to view the world through their eyes when you're performing
Yeah, and
as them, and it's kind of an interesting thing that not a lot of people get to experience in their lives. Like you get to live a life of a character while you're performing and playing in the film.
Right.
I'm curious, like when you leave roles, even particularly this one when production ends,
Yeah.
are there ones that are harder to shake? Do you miss people that you played? Like, do you miss? I mean, Gladys, obviously, what she's doing is horrific. But
Says who?
I mean, I think a lot of people would say that. But I mean, but her character, she doesn't. You know, in her mind, she doesn't feel that she's a villain.
No, she is doing exactly what she has to do to survive. This is a survival text for her.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you miss people you play? Like, and are there ones that took longer to go away?
I missed Gladys when we finished. I missed her very much, and I don't usually carry that. I don't usually do that. But it was such an immersive experience that I missed her. I think fondly of some characters I've played or people that I've played.
Can I ask who?
Yes, you can. Well, it's actually doing a play I was in, and I got to work with my husband, Ed Harris, and it's a Beth Henley play called The Jacksonian. And it's a very funny but wonderful, gritty play about the segregation in Mississippi early on. And no punches were pulled on that one. And every evening, my husband would kill me on stage.
Oh.
And it was all choreographed and this and that, but it was so great. I cannot tell you.
Really?
It was so there, and it was so controlled, but very, very wild, and you kind of popped your eyes open. And it's the freeingness of when you can let yourself go and really be in this moment, really be who this character is. I was also working with my husband, who I trust very much.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's kind of like you're going off the ledge. And I kind of felt that with Gladys a bit, absolutely. I was just like, okay, this is what's got to happen. This is what I'm going to do. And you're lucky when you find those spots, you know. I've worked with some great people, and I've had enormous chances that a lot of people don't get any chance. I do realize that. I mean, I'm getting another chance now. Talking to you, people responding to Gladys, working with Zach, you know, all my beautiful cast members. So it's, I know it's hard things when you talk to actors about things that are very personal, but this is just, there's such an openness that happens. And I'm a little more withdrawn in my real life, which I know people kind of don't expect. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say withdrawn, but I really like my alone time. I like to hunker down. I like to be quiet. You know what I mean? So acting is just this opportunity to fly, you know?
I would imagine that acting is also extremely cathartic, right? And
Yes,
storytelling.
yes.
And Zach talks about this, but obviously this script came out after he lost a friend of his, Trevor,
Yes.
and who's, you know, they had an incredible partnership and obviously friendship as well. And I know that he was dealing with the grief of that. And
Yeah.
that's where this script kind of formed through him questioning
And just think
that
what
grief.
that thing that happened to him, how he turned it into his artwork, and how
That's-
he did
yeah.
it.
And that's kind of what I'm
You
getting
know?
at, because
Yeah.
like I'm curious for you, and I interviewed Zach recently about maybe like just talking about that idea and how art can be cathartic. As an actor, you know, throughout the years that you've done work, I'm
Right.
curious the catharsis you found in your life just playing characters. Do you find that you get catharsis in your own life by playing characters?
Yes, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, because if you're really involved in working on something, you know, it does stay with you. Not that it's stays with you. Like, oh, did you have a hard time shaking it off? But the experience of that stays with you. I mean, I can go and think of certain things I worked on or with other people. I mean, that's in me. That's just going to always kind of feed me and inform me. Also, the stuff that really sucked, you know, you memorize those things, and that informs you. You know, what happened when that didn't work or whatever. You know, it all does. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, and you kind of have to take a little step back. You know, but that's okay.
Yeah, I remember I was interviewing Ben Stiller once for the show Severance.
Yeah.
And
What a great show.
amazing
that is,
show.
Isn't it?
But I bring that up because I was asking him this question about the metaphor of severing from work, right? And so, like in the show, the characters go to work, and they don't
Right.
know who they are in and outside of the world of work. And I kind of equated that to what you do as actors for a living, in the sense of you go to work, you play a character, and you
Right.
have to sever from that character and go home and be yourself.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
and the way Ben described it was this idea of your body doesn't know that you're actually that your body doesn't know you're acting. You're still going through the emotion
Yeah, exactly.
and the experience. And I was curious if that's something that you feel as well, in the sense that like you're talking about that doing the play with Ed Harris and your
Yes.
husband, and he kills you on stage every night.
Right.
Your body still has to go through the emotion.
Definitely.
That's got to, and so that's got to be an interesting thing then, to sever and go home from
Right.
roles that you play, I would imagine.
I was always, after those performances, you do 8 a week, I was so relaxed when we would come down for that night or when we'd go home. It was just, I don't think I've ever experienced something quite like that. And that was the piece informing me of what that was, and was still in me, because I remember it very vividly, you know. That's a really good explanation that Ben came up with.
Yeah. I never thought of it that
Yeah,
way.
me neither.
'Cause I mean, and it applies to anything you do. Like in a film, if a character has to kill somebody or if a character has to do something, they're still putting themselves through that in
Yeah,
a way,
definitely.
emotionally.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
So going back to what you were saying about Brando and the kind of physicality, there's ways that Gladys moves that I think
Yeah.
is really interesting. But it's these nonchalant things where she's in the middle of a conversation, she's turning the twig or the stick
Yeah.
with the hair or the ribbon on it, and she's just doing it in this like nonchalant way, knowing what that's going to do to
Right.
somebody.
She doesn't want you going like, what are you doing there? It's
Right.
just she's carrying on a conversation while she's doing that.
Can you
know?
speak about finding that, though, that physicality of how she was going to do that, how she was going to ring the bell, how
I got to thank Zach for that, because he was so specific. And we one day when we were doing the scene in the kitchen before Mayhem comes out, you know, we were like, okay, we've got to get this stick right, we've got to get this hair right, we got to take it out of the pocket. It was all very technical, you know, and we both got a little frazzled, like, can we do this, you know? But then once you put all those pieces together, there is an ease with it. There's an ease with Gladys. She knows what she's got to. She knows this is going to go exactly how she wants it to go. I mean, she doesn't do it. She gets other people to do these things for her.
Yeah.
So she's a little removed in a way. She comes up with the ideas. She's got the power. But yeah, I'm glad you noticed the physicality, because when I think of other work I've done, I like being physical. Even like the larger movies I did when I was younger, there was always some physical element to it.
Can you give an example?
And yeah, like when I did Field of Dreams and I come blasting out of the room and smash into the locker. That's just something that I came up with. I'm like, yes, this is what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Or some stuff that we did with Uncle Buck. You know what I mean? Just things like that. And they were comedic and they wanted those pieces, but it was like, how are you going to do it? I like, you know, Gladys, she loves the way she looks, and when she comes into the principal's office, she has a way of being, and she kind of uses her hands. You know, she likes her hands a lot, I think, and she feels great how she looks. That was so freeing. She feels just great. She's like, don't I look just beautiful?
Just full confidence.
Yes, I wish I had that confidence in my life. I wish I had that confidence. You know, I'm here to see you today, and you know, I had the hair and makeup people come over who are so fantastic, by the way. And you know, we had to kind of get myself together. I didn't have to think about anything like that of what the world sees a woman my age coming on a show. All I had to think about was like, it's Gladys. It's Gladys. She knows how she looks. She feels great. So, as you can tell, it's very affected by Gladys in making the movie.
Yeah.
You know,
But even going back to that tone I was speaking about, the nonchalant tone, like the scene
Right.
with Benedict Wong and the headbutting, right? And that is one of the most brutal sequences of
it
all
is
time.
pretty brutal. I got to admit.
And I know Zach was trying to. I think it was a movie called Irreversible that he was trying to kind of play with there in that scene.
Yes.
But that is another interesting piece of tone for Gladys because she's just nonchalantly putting her stuff away
Yep.
while this is happening. You know, it's as if nothing's going on.
Right.
And that to me is scarier than her standing over and
Absolutely, and going,
screaming. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I knew that Benny was going to, do what I wanted him to do. I didn't know he was going to bash that guy's head that many times. I mean, at one point, I don't even know if you were, I look over and go, ooh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
It's very quick.
Yeah.
I mean, so those are the wonderful things about it. But she's all business.
Mm.
I mean, if she doesn't get this to work, what's going to happen to her?
Right.
You know?
Right. That's why she keeps saying, "Have you called the authorities yet?" Right before she breaks that stick.
Exactly.
I mean, and that was interesting. The different things that she wraps around the sticks, the ribbons or the hair.
It has to be something personal from the
Right.
person that she wants dealt with.
Right. And I was curious how.
And that's Zach. That comes from Zach.
So smart.
Isn't it though?
Yeah. But
Instead of like, I don't know, it's not a magic wand or it's not a spear or it's you know what I mean? It's something kind of so delicate in a way.
was there an interesting physicality there with the different pieces you used to wrap around the twig and like learning like how the hair would feel, how the ribbons would feel?
Exactly. And I mean, I really had to rehearse those things so they would look like this is an everyday thing that you have to do. You know what I mean? But like in that scene in their kitchen, when I have the scissors in my hand and I just go up and take a little piece of his hair, those kind of things are. First of all, you're going like, what the? Wait a minute.
Right.
Stop. What is it? What's going on? Everybody starts bumbling around. So that's what her centeredness, her quietness, and I agree with you, makes the scene much eerier.
Yeah.
Aside from what's going on over there.
I know. I'm almost equally as scared as how nonchalant she's being. Like that's equally as freaky.
I didn't think that out, but I know that I've had that reaction from some other people. You know,
Wild.
and yeah, it felt really right too. But that's Zach. He really orchestrated those things and really knew what he wanted because I like taking direction, good direction. I mean.
You've been directed by some amazing filmmakers. Walter Hill, your husband Ed Harris directed Pollock. I mean, you've worked with
Robert Benton. I mean, Louis Malle.
John Hughes.
I mean, when I think back to that, I go, wow. I mean, I was so fortunate. And all those things that we just mentioned, they were incredible experiences. Some easier than others. Some really, really difficult times, let's say. But it taught me so much. And, those things we're bringing up, that's when I was younger and coming up and things were, I did this film and then that and how I was carrying myself and what was going to be, and, but I worked with some great filmmakers.
Yeah. I mean, I was literally, the list of people you have an amazing filmography. You should be very proud of it, genuinely. And
I am proud of it.
You should be.
I really am.
And that's why it's an honor to have you here. It's funny, like you mentioned Uncle Buck. I mean, I just had Macaulay Culkin here the other day.
Oh, wow.
And like and I don't know if you saw the John Candy documentary.
I haven't seen it yet, but Mr. Candy, oh my God, what can you say about the man
What did that film mean to you? I mean, especially the John Hughes and John Candy. Like, that's like two of the greatest artists of all time.
Boy, they were like just muses to each other. And I'm from the city in Chicago, so I know that suburb very well that he kind of places things in. But of course, I'd seen, since SCTV, I knew who John was.
Yeah.
And he is exactly, I'm sure what the doc says and what everybody says about him, the most generous.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from him because he there's a guy who used Physicality, but he was very free in what he did, but he really knew what he was doing. And when I was off camera, working with him, it was very hard to keep it together. Like, I'm supposed to be mad at you, I'm your girlfriend. and even when you were doing the takes, like, I I was like, don't crack, and I'm pretty good at that. But man, you find yourself twisting your head a little bit, Yeah, those movies hold up, which
Yeah.
is just a nice thing.
Oh, Uncle Buck's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Like Field of Dreams, it holds up.
Isn't Field of Dreams the connection that Zach had to wanting to cast you? And I
Yeah,
read that somewhere.
Yeah, he's seen me do. He did his homework before we met, or he liked some performances I did, or something like that, and he had a confidence in me, which of course bounced back on him because I wasn't used to being dealt that hand, let's say, in this last period of years in my life and work opportunities and things like that. So his confidence in me was like, oh yeah,
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, and it's not nice. That's such a bad word. I don't even know what to say about it.
Well, it's all, maybe there isn't a word for it. I mean,
Yeah.
like, we're not sitting here right now if it wasn't for this, for this performance
That's
and,
right.
and Zach Kreger. And, I've loved your work since I was a kid, but I was like, I wasn't sure if we'd ever have a chance to chat. I wasn't,
Right. I'm so glad you asked.
And it's so cool to have you here. Another thing on Physicality, the way she runs at the end.
I know.
There's a shot of a guy mowing the lawn, and he stops and looks. It's one of my favorite edits in the whole film.
It's really kind of perfect.
It's
isn't
perfect. It's
it?
perfect.
I know.
But what I find interesting about that scene, and I know you've spoken about it, and we're in spoiler territory, so people can, if you have seen the film or haven't, just click back.
I've said so many things. We're not supposed to say things.
No, we're totally fine.
okay.
Yeah.
I
But
don't know.
what I find interesting about that sequence is you have these young kids ripping apart Gladys in the most brutal way you could ever imagine.
True.
What is your relationship, Amy Madigan's relationship, to those kids while you're filming that scene? Is it more playful? Obviously it's a brutal sequence,
Yeah.
but it's also a cathartic sequence for the audience because it's an earned moment.
Oh yeah, the audience is going, they're
Yeah,
coming for you.
Exactly. But are you what's your relationship with the kids during the filming of that? Are you is it like fun and joking, or are you kind of like in character and they're doing their thing?
Well, don't forget we had this group of kids with us the whole time we were shooting, and they were, stellar. They were whatever their nervousness was, or they didn't know what they were doing. They were pros, and they were also kids, and sometimes you have to go, come on, get over here. But that was about it. You know what I mean? And when Jason Collins, who did the effects and the appliances and things, when we had the dummy there on the ground, the one where I'm eviscerated. So they're like, yes, you can put your hand and take this organ out. You can do it. Or I had these weird earlobes that were attached, that I wore for the whole film. And unless you kind of looked at me and you went, what's with those ears?
Oh, they hang down.
Yes.
You can really see it in the fork scene because they're just like sitting down.
So gross, aren't they? They really are. And those little baby teeth, that was my favorite. That freaked me. Those baby teeth were like, go away from me. I don't want to ever see that face again. So, but some of the kids, after spending all this time together, I said, feel these earlobes because you're going to rip one of them off. And they were like, oh, that sounds, I think, okay. And I remember one girl in particular, she was a little nervous about that. I said, oh, come on over here. Because we'd been hanging out for a while, And by the time we got to that end where I did all the running, which I keep talking about, I'm so proud of myself.
It's such a good running. It's probably one of the best running sequences since Forrest Gump, probably. It's like a brilliant running sequence. What an amazing scene.
It was just a blast to do it, and I've said this before, but I think that they had stunt people there, of course, and stuff, and Zach kind of came over when we started the sequence because it took a number of days because we were all over the place, and he said, you feel okay about doing this? I went, oh, yeah. And I think one producer in particular, she was visiting that day, and I think she was a tad nervous. Like, suppose she slips and breaks her ankle or smashes her head into something, which I could do, let's face it. And I was just like, oh, I'm doing it, Zach. And he's like, okay, let's go. So, but when we got to the end, I'm tackled, and I did not go down like that because I would have broken my nose, I'm sure. But then when I flip over, I said, now when I flip over, you guys, just go for it. You know what I mean? And I flipped it, and I'm going, no, no. And those kids just tore at me. They were so into it.
Before the dummy's placed in.
Yes.
And so you're there for the initial ripping apart.
Yes, and we did many takes of that. Thank you, Zach. And many angles. But you needed it because you had to see my face doing that. And, you know, the kids were just like little wild, feral creatures. And they knew that, like, yes, it's really Amy, and we don't want to strangle her, but we do want to get like that, you know. But they were very cool about it. But then they really had fun.
Yeah.
They really had a good. I mean, wouldn't you?
Because the scene is fun in a weird way.
It is, right?
Like because the whole time they've been stuck in that basement, and now they get to kill the person who put them there.
Exactly.
It's kind of you actually feel like good at the end of the movie after something.
It's a hopeful movie.
Yeah,
I'm telling
you know what I mean? There's like a weird catharsis you have as an audience member. I'm like, oh, I feel like positive right now. It's, in a strange way.
And then you see that the kids and the parents are not doing so
know.
well, and who knows what that's. I'm not saying a word, but the kids were great, you know, and you know, Alex in particular, you know what I mean, Carrie. He was
amazing performance.
He was, you know, and he'd done some stuff before, so he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he was very prepared, knew everything, took direction well, and actually could be like my favorite scene in the film is when Gladys is really, really going down. And I look horrible. I had all the beautiful prosthetics and wigs and all that stuff.
From little hairs hanging off. That was wild.
From Jason Collins. And then we really decided, how do we want to have these braids and this and that? But I really got myself into a good place, and everybody was very quiet, and I was puking in the bucket, you know, and he just walks in, and it was just two actors that you hope you get. It was a very quiet scene, very well written. That little face came in. I said, "Come here, I need your help," you know, and it was so real and so perfect, and he was so in it, and he really made that scene. I think he really was just there, and I kind of. We didn't do a lot of takes of it, but I remember at one point I kind of was floating around. I was just like, because I had worked on the physicality and I was really sick, and I need this, you know, and that's because of Carrie, you know, really.
Because it's almost like he was actually checking on you.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, under the circumstances, it was just an interesting thing. You're right. There's something on his face.
You want some water?
Yeah, you're right.
You know.
Yeah.
And then, can you go to the hospital? Normal questions. And then he's smart. He says, "So if I do this, will you go back to where you came from? Will you go home?" Now I answer him. Am I answering him
truthfully?
Truthfully? Am I playing him? Am I? You know, all those things. But I remember that very vividly. And Zach wrote a very simple, great scene.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a great scene. I talked about music at the beginning of the interview.
Right.
Score is something that I love, and score is a character in films.
Definitely. And boy, when you hear too much score or bad score, that drives me crazy.
Yeah, and then you have situations like No Country for Old Men where there's no score at all, and it still works. And
please,
it's just brilliant. But in this film, I know Ryan and Hayes and Zach all did the score together.
Right.
It's a remarkable score because it also, like your character and a lot of people in the film, juggles an interesting tone. Yeah. There's like comedic beats to the score. There's horrific beats to the score. He does like those like violins during the fork scene.
Right.
What is your relationship as an actress to score? And when you finally see a performance of yours set to music,
wow, is that a gift?
Yeah, what is that? Because I have to imagine it reveals things to you because you're on the day, you're working, right? And sometimes filmmakers have music and sometimes they don't. But generally that process ends in the final cut.
Yeah.
When you see like your performance is set to score over the movies that you've done, I remember Gone Baby Gone, what an amazing score that film had.
That was a really good score, wasn't it?
So I'm just curious like what your relationship is to music that you're set to as an actor. Do you have favorite scores that you've been set to over the years and what music means to you as an actor?
Well, as I said, I'm a musical person and did that for a long time. You know, sometimes, you know, a lot of times, even when you see a rough cut or something, it's just temp music in there, you know? So you're not sure what it's going to be, but it's very important. And actually, I can remember scores that I felt were so, I'm not going to say names of things, that were so intrusive that just were wrong, I mean, Carter Burwell I like very much. And there's just
James Horner.
There's so many people that you just go, that's a total gift.
James Horner scored you in, I had this written down. I just thought he did score you in a film. I'm trying to remember which one it was now.
Okay.
Off the top of my, I will find it
So
afterwards.
Get on your phone.
Yeah. But score must be something important to you, especially someone who's has musical background.
Well,
yeah.
I have used music for myself for my own preparations, which is important.
Did Gladys have music?
No, when I was working on Gladys, no, she did not.
Oh.
But I realized that Gladys, I did a little bit because I think that she liked, musicals, and she did like very esoteric jazz, like Eric Dolphy or something that's like, what is that? You know what I mean? They both kind of, it was like the nice thing and then more the intense thing. So that kind of just came to me, and so I did get a couple of pieces of that. But when I see a film, going back to what you were saying and asking, and all of that music is in there, you kind of go, oh, I had no idea that was really going to be the impact of that scene. Oh yeah, that really works, So that's just a gift to me when I see that, because it just makes your performance better. It just does.
Yeah.
The editing room, it makes your performance better. The sound being laid in there, it makes your performance better.
It's all it's such a collaborative process.
Isn't it though?
Yeah, it's a beautiful process, and I know we have to get out soon. I'll end on this. I wrote like 20 questions for you. I wish. I'll end on this one because this is something I ask often. So, have you ever seen the movie Babylon?
Yes.
Damien Chazelle's film, and there's a scene in that film where Brad Pitt's character is like, he's a silent era actor, and the talkies are coming in.
Yeah.
And Gene Smart is like this journalist who's written this article about kind of like the death of his career in a way. And he goes to her to talk to her about the article, and she says something so profound to him that like makes the hair on my arm stand up. And I'll paraphrase it, but it's basically like, in 100 years, someone's gonna turn on your work and you're gonna flicker back to life.
Yeah.
And it's this like, to me, it's this beautiful sentiment that what you do.
That just gave me kind of like the woo.
Right, but think about the work you do, like, and not to be dark, but once we're gone, that work will live on. So, like, I'm watching Buster Keaton right now. He's coming back to life on my screen.
Of course.
What does that mean to you to know that the work you've done? I mean, you're looking at your whole career and the work you've done. That your work will live on. And do you think about the story you've told with the work you've done and the legacy that you would leave when people find your movies in 100 years?
I've never really thought in the largesse of the legacy, but I know there are, just from my own inner compass, and I know from other people how they've approached me about certain things I've done. I know things have touched people in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be, oh, it was so beautiful, whatever it is, and that feels really good. And if that can continue, I have people's like grandchildren watching Uncle Buck and things like
Generations.
that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's a really nice thing. Well, look, I was talking about Brando.
Yeah.
So that will always be there, and I'm going to think more about that now that you've kind of put that in that phrase for me and very succinct.
Because it's
but
beautiful.
if there's some performances that people still talk about in whatever way, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Someone's going to meet Gladys in 100 years. I mean, imagine that person flicking on like their TV, and then that character comes on screen.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Well, that's like seeing Nosferatu or something.
Yes.
You go, oh, wow. I mean, I could watch that face and that thing 100 times. I probably have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I get nervous about these kinds of things.
You should never be nervous.
I know.
I mean,
I do.
Genuinely speaking.
Yeah. He knows that.
And I do want to say something before we go. When I'm not saying if, when you get nominated for the Oscar for supporting actress,
right?
This will mark 40 years exactly since you were last
That's
nominated.
crazy, dude.
I mean, think about
That
that.
really
40
is.
years ago, you were nominated for an Academy Award, and that bridge to where you are now.
Yeah, it's a long journey. You
But
know
I mean,
what
twice in a lifetime, that's 40 years ago.
Right.
I mean, I'm just like, what does that mean to you to be sitting here now with that thought process?
It's a lot. It's pretty overwhelming, to be honest with you. Uh, one of the first interviews I did, and I was really nervous about it, I was sitting down, and the gentleman, I'm not going to say his name because it was really good, and the first thing he said, he goes, "So, 40 years ago, you were nominated for an Academy Award." And I went, okay. It was like, okay, let's put a really fine point on that, because I started thinking just ego-wise and ridiculous. Oh, that's so long, and you're blah, blah, blah. And then I said, no. He was saying that because it's like, that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
as you're saying it. So I have been much better in accepting those kind of things. It is overwhelming. Honest to goodness, it is. And people's reaction to Gladys, I was not expecting it. I thought they'd like the film, and I thought that they'd dig Gladys, but I had no idea. I really didn't. And that's fun. What, I was going to plan that? Oh, they're going to fall in love with me. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Well, I say that with the kindness in my heart because it's beautiful to see your story and the filmography you've done. And thank you so much for sitting here with me and just chatting about filmmaking. It's really an honor to hear your thought process and the way you approach physicality and everything you do. So obviously, to me, I know you care about what you do for a living. So it's beautiful.
Well, so do you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been really nice.